What makes a good actor, sir? Is it training or is it something God-gifted?
Both, I suppose. Both, certainly. God can give you a gift, but your director can ruin it. The person who's directing the play can ruin it. Your actors around with you can ruin your performance on the stage. You may be brilliant, you may have worked very hard, you may be giving something very important, etc., to that production, your interpretation of it. It all depends upon the atmosphere all the time. And that you have got to preserve wherever you go, in any walk of life, whether it is this, your hospitality, your kindness, the considerate manner in which you ask me difficult questions, all that. No, I mean that, because these are tough things. One can't be glib about them, They're very tough.
In terms of how people see people, is that a function of how we grow up? Or is it how much work we do on ourselves or how we understand people?
It is invariably what profit I get from what I do, which will help me improve myself. And that is also very shady when you say help me improve myself. Therefore, you've got certain things which will make you improve yourself. Maybe a couple of bottles of drink in the evening, which may help you improve yourself.
So how do you look at improving yourself? That's important.
Very difficult question. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult and I'm not trying to be over smart, etc. These are all problems which have obsessed human beings since time began and will continue to obsess them forever.
Very true. So we'd like you to share some childhood memories with us about your Pune days and your Pune compound days.
Whenever I think about them, I always have to think about the role that my father played in all this. Why should, at that time, a comparatively young man by that time meant being about 35 or 40 years old, come over here, settle down over here, have his place in Pune. Pune is so many miles away and so many hours away from Bombay. He has his office in Bombay because that's a port and one of the major cities in India for business, etc., between India and the Middle East. And at the same time, Pune was considered to be a health center. It was very good. The climate was very good. It was a moderate climate. It was very pleasant. And on the whole, it had much greater refinement and so on than more compressed cities and with large populations, etc. And so the kind of pattern on which Pune was divided, it was a very large compound. Within the large compound, you may have had 5, 6 different families. There would be the Parsis, the Anglo-Indians, and there would be the Gujaratis and so on. There would be the Boris, the rest. My father used Pune because it was a quieter place than Bombay. Bombay was a tremendous amount of traffic movement and so on. So he had to be in Bombay because he was a businessman, and his business was largely with the Middle East. Whatever it was to provide the Middle Eastern people with, whether it was food or it was furniture or whatever it was, he provided them with that. And then he felt more at home in the Arabic language, therefore the communication was largely in Arabic, and through people who knew each other's ways. And he felt Pune being a resort for the army, British Army. So things were orderly. From time to time there used to be riots. That was in more distant places. It was more difficult to have things where things were in order. So my father had that security that my family is all right in Pune because the army is there and this, that, and the rest of it. And my father was also tremendously interested in ideas and books. Therefore, whatever books he wanted in the Arabic language, he went to Egypt. And so he subscribed to a large number of books in Arabic. The finest things came out in the field of literature, in the field of knowledge, the field of politics, etc. And so my father also built up a room, which was a library. It was a very beautiful room because the windows looked out on the fields. And it was very, very, very beautiful. You see the Chico fields and the other fields and so on. It was absolutely beautiful. Then there were always these things drawing water from the wells. And there were the bullocks that drew water from the wells. And there was a Maharashtrian driver who drove the bullocks, etc. And he was always singing those songs in Marathi, etc., etc. And the wheels were going around. You could hear the wheels going around. And then at the end of it, the enormous amount. You used to be frightened sometimes because these huge sort of containers of water on a huge scale, which is being drawn by the bullocks down the ramp, etc., drew all this water on, and it fed all the fields around. So all your food things, etc., were all available over there. The vegetables and so on, the rice and the rest of it.
Paint such a beautiful picture. I mean, I can just see it in front of my eyes. It's lovely.
Yes, and the neighbors, then you became good neighborly friends, you see, with the Parsi family that was there, and religiously followed this business of classical music, classical Western music. Therefore, they had a person who was a German and would come on a motorbike and come and give regular lessons every single day to them, all on the piano, the piano, the piano. And they became very, very good. The Parsis were the biggest performers on these musical instruments in India, and they continued for many, many years to do that. Now, so it brought you very good teachers from abroad, just as the fathers who had been Jesuits, etc., from Switzerland, they were brought in, so the other elements were also brought in. But my father was also inclined towards patronage of people who are in the lower walks of life, and for whom he would set up a thing for the youngsters to be looked after. Because invariably from cities and
like
so on
an orphanage.
Like an orphanage. They were all orphanages.
Okay.
They were really orphanages. And therefore my father felt a sense of responsibility. He had to look after the education of all these people. And he enjoyed doing that. He
Strong social consciousness.
Yes, he was tremendously aware of all this. And he never flaunted himself. He bought my father, as I told you, he bought for my mother a Packard car. In those days, a Packard car was like a Rolls Royce. And it was invariably the coat of arms of the person who was in the car that was painted on the door of the car.
So did you enjoy traveling in that car?
Yes, I did, because I could show off a little bit. And then everywhere you passed, everybody saluted my father and made you feel important.
So you also got a salute.
Yes, but my father used to feel awkward about it, you see. My father had that car for my mother, you see, because he wanted to be good to my mother, and he wanted to see that my mother was well looked after, that my mother was respected wherever she was taken. Because where were you taken? You were taken to the gardens.
So tell me, sir, were you a naughty child?
I don't think that I was naughty. I think that we were a very lively family, because my sisters were all taught sewing and so on, and embroidery and the rest of it. And then my father was also tremendously interested in knowledge, and therefore whenever he went to Egypt, he brought out a whole lot of gramophone records. And some of them were with the recitation of the Quran Sharif. Some of them were popular music, but of very high quality, and so on, of the top people then, because Egypt was in the forefront of the movement towards modernism and so on in the Arab world.
So with so many brothers and sisters around, a challenge for your mother, obviously, to look after all of them,
was tremendous.
Would you just take off your bicycle and dash off, and people would wonder where you were?
Yes, but we were very careful not to offend our parents, because my parents could be quite strict. My father would never beat us. My mother would occasionally sort of spank us a little bit. But, with the manner in which a mother looks after the children, etc., giving the impression of being very strict, etc., etc., and at the same time crying as she whipped you, as she spanked you a little bit.
How sweet. How sweet. So I want you to share the legend of Abu Khalil.
Abu Khalil? I don't have much of a legend. I was a youngster.
Who was Abu Khalil?
No, I mean, a person like Ibrahim, I suppose a historical character. There was a character called Ebrahim, who was the father of Khalil. And therefore, invariably you talk to an elderly person by the kind of lineage that he had. So my father would be called Abu Khalil. My father would be called Abu Khalil. Showing him respect for the children that he had, and who my father had taken very great care that they should be properly named in the Arabic language, so that his identity would never be lost.
Okay. So talking of identity, how critical are roots for people?
Well, you were rooted all over the place when you were in India. Somewhere you were in Bombay sometime, because you had also a home in Bombay. My father had a home in Bombay as well. And for the greater part of it, he was alone, because the family was in Pune. And therefore, on Friday evening, he'd take the train from Bombay to Pune, and then spend the Saturday and Sunday with my parents, with his wife, etc., and with the children, and then go back early on Monday morning, so that he'd be just in time to be in his office over there.
So he'd be rooted in two places.
Yes, he was, and it was important for him because of his connections with the Arab countries. He knew all the people in Saudi Arabia, people in Iraq, and all those. They knew him personally.
Okay.
Then he also came to know the people who are in the business of racing, housekeeping, etc. So there was a large number of contacts that he had in the world around him, and which enriched his life and gave him a meaningful thing.
Right. So I want to talk about this young Abu Khalil who went to Bombay.
Abu Khalil, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
then
father.
Ibrahim.
Yes, Ebrahim Alkazi, yes.
Then Ebrahim Alkazi decided to come to Delhi.
Yes.
What were your first views on seeing Delhi? What do you think of the city?
I preferred to be in Bombay rather than Pune because Bombay was more sophisticated. There much more that you could learn in Bombay. There were many more teaching institutions. There were very high standard in Bombay, and you could get a very good education in Bombay. But then that also meant that you went to a father who was a sort of a bachelor. You had a father who was all alone at home, big rooms that he had on top over there. And my elder brother was a difficult young man to look after because he was a young man and he was always for adventure, etc., and running away from home and so on. And much to the alarm of my mother and my father had a tremendous sense of responsibility from the point of view of his prayers, etc., of his children, the rest. And we had also an Arab tutor who had been brought from Saudi Arabia who became almost a member of the family. So we had one part of it which was a school.
Okay.
And the entire family went over there to that school.
So you studied in Mumbai?
No, I studied in Pune.
Pune and then Mumbai?
Pune, yes, and Bombay.
And
yes,
Bombay.
Mumbai, yes.
And then you moved to Delhi?
Then I moved to Delhi.
So what was the move like for you?
My brother suddenly went and joined the British Army. And this was the war was going on with Japan. And he was immediately sent along with his regiment and so on. He was sent to Burma.
Okay.
Now that was very difficult. It was very painful for a mother to find that her son is right there in the front. And God knows what his position would be, etc. So all the time my mother was on tenterhooks. But then there had been about 5 different families in that compound.
So when did theatre enter your life?
Well, when my wife was Ebrahim Alkazi, her brother was Sultan Padamsi. Sultan Padamsi was in many ways a genius. He was highly cultivated. Obviously, he had a considerable amount of experience in England itself. He spoke English extremely well. He was very well behaved. He knew how to behave. He was tremendously interested in music, Western music. And then he entertained at home. And he was a brilliant person as far as the theatre was concerned. Absolutely brilliant. And therefore he did a series of productions in Bombay, which was a tremendous success. And the kind of work that he was doing in the theatre was miles above anything else which was being done in the field of theatre by the other sort of language groups. As young people grow up, naturally their parents are always worried about their future, what is going to happen to them. Sometimes they get married into families, such as one of them got married into the Padamsi family. That family, they were in the glass business in Bombay, and they entertained well, and they looked after you well, etc. But from time to time, during certain months in the year, the atmosphere in Bombay was rather difficult because there used to be riots which used to take place between the Hindus and the Muslims. We had our business in the Muslim area over there. And then there was the trams. The tram system was very important in Bombay at that time. Before the buses came in, there was a tram system, the rail system, which took you around from different parts of the city to another part of the city, etc. So that made life a little easy for you in a way, but at the same time there were other elements during riots which made things difficult. Yes.
When did theatre enter your life?
Well, in the 30s, in the 1930s.
So theatre started with Sultan in Bombay for you, sir?
Yes, right. And I used to act in his plays.
Okay.
He was a very good director. He was very good. He had a very fine eye for staging plays. And his feeling for language was very good. Everything was in the English language. And therefore it's something quite unique because the others were in either Marathi in Bombay, Marathi or Gujarati and so on, very rarely in English. And if it was in English, it may have been by some Goan organization or troops, etc. like that. Nothing very high quality. But this thing was very sophisticated, very high quality.
Okay.
And because he had also been educated at Oxford, that helped an enormous amount. And he was an intellectual. He was tremendous. So he did plays, and I acted in the plays that he did.
So you were then invited to come to Delhi. This is, I think, on the invitation of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Was that it? You were called to Delhi. And you found that you could not refuse because it was like a calling, like a national calling.
Yes, to a certain extent it was
to
like
bring
that,
English professional theatre. He was so...
On the one hand, it was that, but at the same time, he wanted to improve the standard and so on of teaching.
All right.
Right.
What happened? Tell us a bit about that.
There was a National School of Drama.
Okay.
And the arts were located in that same place. Rabindra Bhavan?
Triveni Kala Sangam?
Triveni Kala Sangam.
Ravindra Bhavan,
that area.
Okay.
Because it was very spacious. It had places for music, for dance. It had places for classroom work. and also for theatre. So a great deal of the work was done there. And I think that the kind of work that Sultan Padamsi, he was also known as Bobby, is a short form, Sultan Padamsi had, he impressed people. He was a very strong personality. He knew how to behave, and he was very good. And people were tremendously impressed by him. And his productions were miles apart from anything else that had been produced in Bombay at that time. Little Parsi groups would be producing things, or Marathan groups would be producing things. This man had the sophistication of a person who had been educated in educational institutions in England, and he justified himself in every way. And then he encouraged me a great deal in my work in the theatre. He encouraged me to come into the theatre. He gave me roles and so on to play, which I enjoyed. And as a result of which, I married his sister, his younger sister.
So when you came to Delhi, you came to the National School of Drama,
Yes.
and in fact, as it exists today, you're credited with laying the foundation for this institution. So some changes that you brought about?
Professionalism. Because I realized it's all right, but you have to work even in the courses that you provide in your teaching, what shall we say, wing of your institution. You have to provide for their livelihood in the future. Where are your playwrights? Very poor playwrights in the Indian languages. They used to be there. But they're very, very poor playwrights. They're not good playwrights. And therefore you have to make some kind of a balance between a playwright written in the Indian languages and a playwright written in other languages, etc. You have to be very careful to see in your choice of plays. And then you have to help the actors to develop a style of acting which is appropriate to the situation in which you now found yourself. It had to be modern, not screaming and yelling and shouting and that kind of emotions. That doesn't cut any ice with modern audiences. And that's good. Then also the very plays that you take. India had been rather weak, in its dramaturgy and as far as the material that it produced for the theatre. They're not particularly good plays. They became quite popular, etc., when there were good actors in them. And they were largely actors from the film world. Therefore, they brought atmosphere with them and they created their position and so on in society as a result of that. And they were very successful in doing that, whether it was...
That's right, the Prithvi Theatre in
Prithvi
Mumbai
Theatre
was there.
people, etc.
Right.
and so on. So people formulate, that set the example as to what you should do. That was high class stuff, etc. And some of it was certainly very high class.
So professionalism was brought into the National School of Drama. You also picked very tough plays to do.
Yes, I did, because it was important for me to do that. In some cases I had to do that through the Indian languages, because that was really the medium that I should use in a National School of Drama in India. I couldn't always do plays in English. I didn't want to do plays in English. So I had to adjust myself. Sometimes we had enough plays to do good English versions of those plays, whether they were Shakespeare or whoever they were. In some cases it was not so. It had to be good modern Indian plays and playwrights. No, there are no theatres at that time also. There are no theatres. You may have the National School of Drama, but had no theatres to speak of. And therefore I had to build theatres, create theatres. And I had an old car which I had brought from Bombay to Delhi. And I used to travel around the outskirts of Delhi, and because I wanted to come and see I can come to know the city better and go also to the surrounding countryside. And then I felt there were tremendous possibilities in developing theatre and reaching out to audiences in this part of the country. So I did that. And I think that there were successes. Now, unfortunately, what had happened, but I don't want to be quoted there, and also in so many words, there were quite a large number of playwrights who were good, talented people, but they did not know how to develop the right kind of style into acting in the modern theatre. You see,
Okay.
you couldn't just do it in your old kind of way, etc. In your the film style which you and adapted, for the stage, etc. That was not kind of criterion that you aspired towards. You had to have a certain authenticity. Therefore, you went to approaches that had been made in the Western theatre. That was very good. It taught you a great deal. Whether it was to the people like Shakespeare or, the more distinguished sort of playwrights from 400 or 500 years ago to today, to the modern playwrights.
So using historical places as
Yes.
sets, you changed the persona of the whole production. Tell us a bit about that.
First of all, there were no theatres really for a good place to be put into. There may have been a couple of halls and so on. They were used for various purposes. People did not know how to design sets for the theatre. And I used to find myself restricted in doing that. Therefore, I took things into my own hands in the sense that I found that the greater number of students in the National School of Drama were students who didn't belong to Delhi at all. They came from outside Delhi. When they came to Delhi, there was no place for them to live in, to stay in. There was no for the ladies, there was no place for the gents. It couldn't be distant, it had to be nearby, to be within walking distance, etc. So I had to provide for all those things. It was important for me to do that.
So the movement, and actually people had not really seen historical places as places that you could bring alive certain theatre productions. How did that strike you?
Having come to Delhi, I needed to know what Delhi was about. Delhi is about history. You go back into the past. And therefore you want to see the sites, sites, of historical events, etc. So I went around and saw, looked around, etc. And I found that here were these places, and because they came from Mughal times and so on, they were already there. There are already structures over there.
The grandeur and
Yeah,
all.
the grandeur and the rest of it is already there. And with a certain amount of intelligence and sensitivity, etc., you could easily adapt yourself to those situations. So I think it was there that Panditji discovered me and the kind of work that I was doing. And he felt that it was a tremendous achievement for me to have done that, and also for the National School of Drama. Because here you are in the National School of Drama, you don't have a damn theatre for yourself. You don't know how to get a theatre. You have a place next door to it. You never even bothered to visit it. Nobody used to visit those places over there. They were dirty, they were filthy. Forgive me, they used to be used for all sorts of purposes and so on. And then I felt with a little bit of tidying up, clearing up, etc., it would be fine. I did that. Panditji started coming to see my plays.
Lovely.
And when he started coming to see my plays, well, there was a tremendous following him. And so he took to me. And he felt that I was making a very good contribution to this. Because while other people who have been really associated with the Indian theatre, in the Indian languages, etc., did not know how to use that language, did not use, I'm talking about the theatre language in terms of stage, they did not really know how to do it. They didn't know how to design a setting, they did not know how to, and so on, how to formulate the whole thing. And then he felt, well, here are these historical monuments. Some are big, important, some are mediocre, some are small, etc. But they are there. And they are there to enliven life in the center of the Indian subcontinent. It's all ready-made. And this man, Alkazi, comes from Bombay and uses all this. And he pulls audiences. The audiences all come.
From all sections of society.
From all sections of society.
Religions.
Yes, all religions.
Ladies wearing burqas.
And precisely, I was just about to tell you, yes, all the time there were lines of women in their burqas coming over there to come and see these plays.
Lovely. Talking of Razia Sultan.
Yes.
Some memories about that.
I don't quite remember the memories that I have of Razia.
So you did a play called The Royal Hunt of the
Yes,
Suns.
I know.
So what does this mean?
It shows the conceit of people who are in prominent positions in society, not knowing where the limit of their own capacity is. So they want to hunt the sun, the royal hunt of the sun, and because they are the emperors and because they are the rulers and so on, so nobody dare say no to them, etc., etc. But what kind of a hunt are you sort of indulging yourself in? What are you trying to show? That you're more brilliant than the sun, that you're stronger than the sun, that you're controlling the sun, and so on and so forth. And where are you going to do it? They did not know how to do it. They used to do things in halls. What is this theatre hall, which is next to the National at Triveni, the Kamani Auditorium? They would be at the Kamani Auditorium, place like that. And even the Kamani Auditorium people did not know how to use their own damn theatre. After all, their own main lady was later to become a student in the National School of Drama.
So from acting to direction, when did you decide to make this move?
It was inevitable. I mean, I always directed plays. I felt that I did not know a play well enough until I directed a play. You have to educate yourself. You've got to seek your own education in the material that you bring and use it in a way in which it really enlarges your interest and widens your horizon, etc. and appeals to the audience that comes to you. And we saw to it that a larger and a larger and a larger audience would come to us, because there it was.
So you're a passionate collector of paintings, of arts, and also of some very, very rare photographs. So what does a collection mean for you?
History, the documentation of history. How can you evoke the past unless you have some awareness of what it looks like? You've got to identify it, and you can only identify it with a visible object. Otherwise, what kind of things do you create in your own mind? It has to be identified with a concrete object.
Does history have a challenge of somewhere rooting you in the past and not letting you move forward?
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily, because even that period of the past, it did not say that I'm going to sink my anchor in this part of the world, etc. Not at all. It was not that. And therefore you have to release all these forms of theatrical expression and give them a liberty of their own. And you could see that it enjoyed a tremendous amount of liberty, depending upon how you approached it.
Right.
And with the result that when you did a thing like, if I took a thing which had been a small feature, not a very important feature, in one of these maidans just outside, where you have the theatre, which I used as a theatre to perform in. Was it Firozshah Kotla? And then you get your audiences coming in. The audiences that come from, where do I live now in Delhi?
GK2, sir.
In GK2, that surrounding area, because those people came to know us. And they could just walk to that place over there and
From
buy a ticket
Nizamuddin
from
to that place,
Nizamuddin to
right,
that
right.
place. And then they enjoyed coming over there over a period of time. And that became an important part of your audience. And then while you have a ready-made audience like this, and which you hardly charge them anything at all, I mean, you charge them about half a rupee.
As audience going to see a play, what are the expectations of somebody going to see a play? What does that person want?
Entertainment, I suppose, on the one hand. On the one hand, entertainment. On the other, the extraordinary sort of plights that human beings find themselves in society, in the history of mankind. Now, are their society, and those plights, etc., your plights or not? Therefore, modern audiences want to relate themselves, oh my God, these people went through that. Does it relate to us? Is this really how we are? And invariably it is so. And quite frequently it is that you're much later than what has taken place in history. So they begin to see the relevance of that to your own times. And you've got to adjust it accordingly.
So how important is appreciation from the audience and recognition for somebody in theatre?
A great deal. Tremendous amount. In a way, I had to win over the playwrights. I came to know the playwrights and I had very good contact with them. What are the names of some of these playwrights?
Mohan Rakesh.
Mohan Rakesh is one of them. Then there are about 3 or 4. Come on, tell me.
Girish Karnad.
Girish Karnad, yes, was another.
I think some wonderful works have been written by them.
Yes, and so on. So you could build up a whole lot, and then you could travel around the whole country with those. When I came to the National School of Drama, and I was called from Bombay to come over here and take charge in Delhi, and I got into my car and I went to the National School of Drama, which was out on the outskirts of Delhi. And I was absolutely appalled, because it was a place which was in absolute chaos. They did not know how to arrange chairs. They did not know how to arrange rooms. The whole thing was absolutely chaotic. Then you went, forgive me, you went into the toilets and so on. They were dirty, filthy, disgusting. They had no theatres. I mean, here you have a theatre institution, but you've got no place where that same institution can provide for space for a performance to be held. So did you have to go all the way to Delhi in order to rent Mrs. Shirani's place over there, somebody else's?
So there was no proper theatre as such?
No. There were big theatres and also they were charging large sums of money, etc.
Okay.
And they're providing very few facilities, whether it was the lighting, etc. They hardly knew how to do any of these things.
So you got all that started?
Yes, I got it all done. And it was very simple, very, very simple. And how did I get it done? I got it done by the students themselves. I was with them. I stayed them alongside them. I said, do this, do this, do this. They started doing it. They found it very exciting. They found it very interesting. They found it very rewarding.
Right.
And then Panditji would take the trouble to come This is one of the things that I found about Panditji was this, loyalty. He discovered some talent or something somewhere. He gave you opportunities, not in any obvious kind of way, etc., etc. But the manner in which he quietly supported you, saw what you were trying to do, because that was what I think in my own mind Panditji was trying to do with India. And he must have told himself, that chap Alkazi has been trying to do through the theatre what I am trying to do, damn it, through my political organization. And you have to dramatize these things. But the medium that you use must be authentic. No large wailing, crying, this, that, and the rest of it. Clarity, distinctiveness, dignity, beauty, and so on. So it's musical kind of orchestration in the play itself. And without the audience realizing it, you have, just as a conductor takes his orchestra on the stage and he goes up with his baton over there and he starts doing that, etc., etc., you are doing that quietly yourself as a director of the play. You have done all these things And you've told them how to do this hand, with this movement, with that movement, with retracting this, that, and the rest of it. So the whole thing becomes a dance and a ballet, for God's sake. And it's beautiful.
Lovely.
All the forms and so on are there. You see them. And they open and they close and so on. Very, very beautiful. But you need to have the sensitivity and the understanding and to apply yourself in very simple ways.
So what's your vision for theatre in India?
Tremendous, on a huge scale. I mean, it could knock down the film world. In many ways, the film world was a retarded way of looking at society because they only did it in a romantic kind of way or did it in a non-perceptive kind of way. It is not steeped really in society. It had to be steeped in society. It has to have a truth which arose out of that kind of life seen in society. These people on the stage are representing those people in your society. And that is the link that you see. And you judge a play by the manner in which the characters have been characterized, interpreted on the stage, by the kind of plot of the whole thing. So that doesn't become just a thing with misdemeanors and so on. All those things come in over there. So there's the kind of quality that you bring to the orchestration of an orchestra, you bring to the theatre. You are orchestrating everything in a quiet kind of way. You're orchestrating.
And that poetry has to be in your heart and soul too,
Yeah, yes,
with the quietude.
Yes.
Wonderful.
And with the result that I was welcomed. I mean, I never asked to do that to Rashtrapati Bhavan. I was always asked to come there, to ask there. And later on, I got touched because he did not have people who could respond to the kind of language using in determining the meaning of the relevance of the play to our own society today. You had to have the sensitivity, the intelligence. You've got to understand also what this form looked like.
So there was a kindring of souls, I think.
Yes,
somewhere
there was. What you've got to discover them for yourself. And you discover them also through your students, because you made your students create the settings for you. You made them do that. And then you took the playwrights. And then you said to yourself, my God, look at this bombastic kind of way, writing about modern society, etc. But look at the kind of bombastic language which is being used. Why did they use an authentic modern language, which is truly a means of communication, etc.? So, with some of these people, you have to start friendly kind of a way. And in the early stages, they resented it. In the later stages, they said you had made a tremendous difference to them, to their whole outlook on life and to their whole outlook on art.
Yes, because I think it's an inner transformation journey.
Yes. So in a quiet kind of way, God had been kind to me in this way that I had, I think, an eye, and I think I had an ear for this kind of thing. And I knew how to work things within limits. It didn't require lakhs and lakhs of rupees. I didn't have to go, to the government of India or to this institution, that institution, give me money, give me this, give me that, give me that. Without that, in the early stages, you start saying, who would come to the National School of Drama out there in the countryside? You've got loads of people coming all the time to see what you were doing.
Because the pull was so strong.
Precisely, yes. So, but I did all these things. I want you to know that I'm not a very intelligent person, a very talented person. I did that through impulse. I threw that through common sense. And my students followed me. And they realized that what I was doing was true, was correct. And they had that kind of approach. Instead of all the time trying to get on the stage a kind of a stage version of a film. You can't try and convert a film into the stage performance. The approaches are two completely different things altogether.
Right.
And so you've got to make your actors understand that what kind of language to use, what kind of vocal strength to use and so on, what kind of evocative strain that you have in your voice, etc., which would get a response from the audience, which no matter 2 pages of, very magnificent sort of, would not be able to get you. Language would not be able to get you. You must understand the language of theatre.
True. And then when you have a live audience, the sighs and the cries that come, that is such beautiful exchange of energy.
Yes. And you could do that.
True. So tell us about your dream venture, this museum that you've set up.
I've been seeing the ups and downs of the position of modern Indian art. There's no real clear definition of what should be seen, and the people who are practicing it themselves do not know exactly where they should go. It's all right, you're turning this thing out, that thing, etc. Because you think now there's a market for all this. Therefore I need to do all this and I can easily sell this for 1.5 lakh rupees, that for 2 lakhs of rupees or whatever it may be. And I can easily make my living like that. And that is the kind of thing I'd like to do, not a nonsense. When you do that, you're really ruining your talent. So your search for the meaning of life today has got to be different from how you're interpreting it in terms of the stage. It's completely different, completely different. And that is, you've got to see that difference. And everywhere we went to, you found that the people who are serving Panditji himself and other people, etc. over there, the very people who are serving him do not know how to serve him. It's a very simple little thing, whether it's giving them a cup of tea or whatever, they just do not know how to serve him. And this man, to a certain extent, because he's also had a Western education, Panditji, therefore has some other kind of uneasy kind of feeling as to what is really going wrong with this play. I'm not able to explain what is going wrong with this play.
Okay. So in this venture of yours, in this museum, what have you wanted to convey or what have you wanted to do?
First of all, there are very few buyers for modern Indian art. And there were much larger numbers of people, by outsiders, by people from other countries coming and buying art in India than from Indians buying Indian artists. Because Indians had no way of judging the quality of art being produced here in this country. And therefore you had to give them assurance, as it were, of livelihood in these forms of theatre, of the stage, of the film, through the kind of work that you did. Because you can make a great living. You can, till today, you can make a great living through these forms, because now you've come through this other thing that we have got, which people are very anxious to use, to see, and which costs them very little to see. And so like this, you utilize all those.
The electronic media is a great way, and I think
Yes,
the internet, the computer, you're
yes,
right,
it is.
absolutely.
Yes.
So this museum here, you showcase people from different parts. It's
Yes.
also your personal collection and
Right.
your memories over the years.
No, now there were no buyers. There are no buyers for works of art. And then things would go to their head, to
Okay.
artists, because people would feel that art in the West is fetching such a colossal amount of money, etc., etc.
right.
Why should we not sort of,
Do that.
jack up the prices, etc.,
Okay,
what
so
we
that
want to sell?
becomes a little commercial
Yes.
there. Okay.